Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that's caught our eye this week. I'm James, and with me is Marcus Crafty Craft.
Hello.
Who's been pondering tricked up utes and whether they're all they make out to be. And Andrew Chesterton,
podcasters,
who's been looking at domination of the automotive market. And we'll update you on Silicon Valley's greatest carnival barker in this week's MuskWatch. So stay with us. But first of all, happily, we have had some feedback.
Fantastic.
And one of our regulars is Hammer Rocks. Now, Richard last week called Hammer Rocks out as an automotive industry insider.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hammer Rocks has come back to us and said he denies all that. He is just a devotee of cars and motorsport.
Are those his exact words?
No.
Okay.
He says if his vocabulary was broader and he was poetic and eloquent like us.
Yeah. Well, Chesto.
Thank you, Hammer.
Yeah.
He would have been a motoring journalist. Says he can barely put a paragraph together, a claim he comprehensively blows away with the note that he sent to us. I thought it was a great paragraph.
Yeah. He's a
Hammer
prolific
Rocks,
writer, isn't he?
Time enough if good enough.
None of that's ever stopped me either. Just
Now, he also weighed in on the Jeep Renegade 1-star ANCAP discussion that was had last week.
the Wrangler.
Beg your pardon, Wrangler.
Yeah.
And he said, look, Jeep either needs better engineers or better software because, you're going to know that your vehicle is going to score a 1-star NCAP because you're simulating all of these crash tests multiple times in very sophisticated computer programs. So how could you be surprised that you end up with a 1-star rating?
Absolutely.
Hence his point. You either need better engineers or better software. But then he then kind of says, well, maybe they've just got a really hot product and they know that it'll sell and people will buy it regardless.
Yeah, look, I don't think that came as a surprise to Jeep, to be honest. I think they knew what was coming, but they said, to hear them say it, they're the sacrifices you make for a car with the capability of the Wrangler, and to some extent they've got a point.
And I think, Crafty, last week you made the point. It's a lifestyle choice, isn't it?
Absolutely,
it's not typically a family car.
No.
It's got a specific purpose in mind and in life.
It's got a street sort of cachet, street cred or whatever,
I think to Hammer Rocks' point, there probably was a decision made, a kind of
early
pragmatic
on.
decision
Early
about
on,
where
I
it's
think,
going to sit on safety relative to its overall appeal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think Jeep will be that worried about it sort of impacting sales at all.
Well, on that for a moment, it's actually, from memory, the fastest selling Jeep product in more than a decade, I think, in the States. So their pre-orders were through the roof.
Yeah.
And the first month of sales was staggering.
Well, for one thing, I'm looking forward to driving the Gladiator.
Yeah.
I just think that'd be huge fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Huge fun. Now, we had another piece of feedback from Jacob Matthew, not Matthews, Jacob Matthew, and he fired up a great discussion with Robert Green and Hammer Rocks on the greenness of EVs. Now, we've probably all had this same discussion. So he talked about pollution at source of vehicle production, like how are the actual cars, be they electric or petrol engine or whatever, how are they put together, what powers the factory, all of that stuff. And electricity production, solar, wind or coal, what goes into the production of the electricity. We've covered that ground a lot. But also the materials used to create batteries and the process of their manufacture, that they're not necessarily the cleanest thing in the world to put together. You're talking cobalt, you're talking delicate substances like lithium that are typically mined from environmentally sensitive areas. Really great conversation. It's on the bottom of episode 85 in YouTube if you want to join in. It's a very good one. And what it takes to produce an internal combustion engine, iron ore, bauxite, the smelting, what runs the smelter that, melts all the metal. And Hammer Rocks put it best at the end when he said this is a rabbit hole that you could go very deep into as to getting to the source and an overall equation in terms of whether a car is environmentally friendly or
Absolutely.
not. It's such a difficult one.
And how prolific is Hammer Rocks? Well done.
It's like he's in the room.
He's everywhere.
If Hammer Rocks could just drop us a portrait, we'll make sure that he's up on the wall so everyone can have a look.
Maybe our first reader guest.
Exactly. He's always hanging outside my house too. I don't know why. He's just
in the bushes?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's Richard Berry, I think, actually, isn't it?
Thank you for the feedback, and that's all terrific. And please keep it coming. It's great. Now, Crafty, we will move on to your subject du jour, which is tricked up Utes, and you've been pondering them and their worth.
Oh, mate, how many of them are there around? I mean, and the range of them is so massive. I mean, the volume of them. I mean, you've got Hilux, great ute
Yep.
by itself.
Yes.
Now we've got the Rogue and the Rugged and the Rugged X and all these sort of
Am
things.
I the only one that's a little bit kind of not in love with those names?
Yeah.
Like a Rogue?
Yeah.
And actually calling a car rugged?
Yeah.
It's like if you call yourself rugged,
Yeah.
you know you're not. Like,
Yeah.
oh, mate, I'm a mountain climber.
Yeah.
I'm a tough outdoors
right.
kind of person. No,
It's like giving
you're not.
yourself a nickname, isn't it? Like
It
it's,
is.
It's
Yeah.
not so good.
Mind you, it worked for Ferrari with the Superfast, didn't it? They sort of stuck what it did right there on the
true.
box.
Pretty
That's true.
literal
Or
too. Yeah.
the Ferrari.
The Ferrari.
Yeah.
Ferrari,
absolutely.
the Ferrari.
Now, my sort of bone of contention with these things, I guess, JC, is that some of them are essentially sticker packs. Some of them will just have a nice bit of lettering on the side, or a little bit of a colour contrast on the bonnet, some sort of racing stripe bloody format, that sort of thing. Some of them are a bit more of a substantial change to the original platform. Some of them, like the Wild Track we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
The interior's a lot nicer
Right.
than sort of lower models,
Yes.
lower spec models, that sort of thing. But some of them are really just accessorised version. You could go do your own research and buy your
Yeah.
own aftermarket gear
Yeah.
and perhaps get out of it a little bit cheaper.
Yes.
But I guess the attraction is you're buying something straight out of the showroom that is according
It's all done.
to the
It's all
it's all
factory.
done and it's ready to go off road.
I suppose it's just
And it looks nice.
It's an understandable byproduct of the spectacular growth in the popularity of utes that the brands are almost trying to catch up. There's things like the Ranger Raptor, and they're a big project.
Yeah.
But also, how can we keep this momentum going?
Exactly,
What,
yeah.
what are we going to do?
Exactly.
They've become an almost luxury item, haven't they? So
Yeah.
It's a premium
Yeah.
product. Did you see the BT50 Boss
The
released
Boss,
this
yeah,
week?
yeah.
that-
We're going to climb into that in the next week or two and
Great.
take that on some
Which,
serious
for what
off-road
it's
stuff.
worth, I mean, various CarsGuide contributors, Mark Osler, who looks after a lot of commercial stuff and the tradie guide
A lot
and
of
what
tradie
have
stuff,
you,
yep.
he's of the mind that it's improved it enormously. That
Yeah.
just those graphics on the outside of the vehicle have changed its proportions and the weight of various aspects
Yeah.
visually.
This is the Mazda
The
specifically.
Mazda, and thinks
Yep.
it's improved it a lot.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
fair call.
Yeah, and you see with things like the Raptor, I mean, that's got Fox Racing shocks. The suspension is tuned differently to another Ford Ranger that you'd climb into, lower spec.
Yep.
So those sort of things are substantial.
Yes.
But again, there are a lot of things that just seem to be, someone's thrown a couple of stickers on. And it looks nice. Maybe it's got bigger rims or something. Maybe it's more suited to urban life than it is to going off-road.
Traditionally, what we'd call a sticker pack or a limited edition has been a sign of distress.
Yeah,
Like we've
absolutely,
got to
yeah.
get rid of these.
Yeah, yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Throw some stickers on it.
Yeah,
Call
yeah.
it the getaway. And,
Dress it up, yeah.
woof, out they
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And maybe knock a bit off the price.
Yeah.
I think this is slightly different. I think the scales are tipped differently. This is let's keep this going.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not distress. Let's build it up.
Yeah,
What can we do
yeah,
to,
and
to
you-
broaden the net?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can't blame them. I mean,
No.
why not? I mean, like Chesto says, these things are selling in a mental fashion.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there are loads of them. You go anywhere, tradies, sort of,
Yes.
weekend warriors, families in dual cab utes. They're everywhere.
Now, the weekend warriors, are they people who are just sitting at home gnawing their fingernails? I think you did say weekend warriors there.
That's correct. Yeah, they're worried about where they're going to go camping.
Yeah, that's right.
We bought some very well priced furniture on eBay and went to pick it up in a Ranger.
Yep.
And it was the first time that I'd really used the tray in a Ranger, and I realised how limited it was. Like, we've got the stuff in there, but you look at it and think, yeah, it'll probably fit. Oh, well, it was absolutely line
Yeah,
ball.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a compromise there. You get your big dual cab and you can fit the family in when you need to. But as a working vehicle, it does compromise things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus the idea of just throwing things in the back too. Remember when utes were merely workhorses and you'd throw tools and things in the back, no problem. Now you feel like you need to put down a little sheet first.
You've got to have the bed
things in,
liner. You've got to protect it all.
I've got a 10-year-old Navara, and I tell you what, that thing's been beaten to all sorts of.
It's been crafted.
It's black
been
and
crafted.
It's been crafty.
Yeah. But it's and the joy there is I don't have to worry about scratching something or damage because it's already been beaten up. But yeah, absolutely. And I mean also with tonneau covers,
you also use that as a getaway vehicle.
Oh
don't
yeah,
you?
absolutely.
I mean it's fairly
You're
incognito.
supposed to keep that quiet. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's the white Bronco, isn't it? I think I saw footage of that once.
Yeah.
With Lone Wolf McQuaid written on the bonnet, yes. So, I mean, some of them, again, pretty substantial
Yep.
and worth the money.
Yep.
Some of the others, maybe not.
And it'd be great to hear from people listening
Absolutely.
or watching, you know, whether they've purchased one of these, whether they're in a wild track or they've had their eyebrows raised by the BT50 boss and what they make of that. It'd be great to hear what people make of it.
But wouldn't automotive manufacturers be rubbing their hands together with glee over these expensive utes because they're still quite cheap to build?
Oh,
utes.
yeah.
So you throw a few stickers at it, put a nicer stereo in it, some nicer seat trim. Suddenly you're selling it for 60, 65,000.
Exactly.
Might be a markup in there.
Yeah.
During the week, you know, we reported that BMW has now officially said, no, we don't want a ute. We're not going to match Mercedes-Benz on that score. But others, like Kia, is just champing at the bit. You know, they can't wait to get a ute into the market. Yeah. And that brand would be crying out for it. You know,
Same with Hyundai.
Good reputation,
completely missing from the commercial lineup there. Can I say one last thing on utes before we move on? I think if BMW says they don't want a ute, to be honest with you, I think Mercedes Commercial is probably thinking the same thing about now. There is plenty of talk about that this will be the last X-Class, that the deal with Nissan has either come to an end or is soon expiring. So I think the world of German premium utes will soon be a thing of the past. You heard it here first.
Interesting. Mark down this day.
And if you read any of my reviews on carsguide.com.au, I've sort of been quite
of that mind
of the X-Class, of all spec levels. We've not had totally fantastic experiences in them, off-road and on-road, and especially in terms of build quality.
And then, as I recall, you weren't thrilled by the interior either. That didn't measure up for a vehicle of that price.
We've had a couple of reviews. No, not at all. And if I was a Merc-loving vehicle buyer, I'd be sorely disappointed if I was to climb into one of those things, having pre-ordered it, and you climb in and the glove box comes off in your hand, and the seats are pretty ordinary, and you know.
I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen many. I mean, you do spot one occasionally, but they're not exactly thick on the ground.
You do not see many here, no.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's great. Thank you, Crafty. That's sparked up a good discussion. Hopefully, people will join in. And Chesto, now we'll go to you. And as happens each month, the new car sales or new vehicle registration numbers have actually come out. And it's a crack record, isn't it? It's the same story at the top of the table each month.
Absolutely. So, look, just a broader view of it for a moment. Look, the Australian car market is struggling a little bit. It's down on almost all metrics, has been now for consecutive months on end. But the interesting thing about last month's results, I thought, was that clear in second position was Mazda with 8,578 sales. Clear in third position was Hyundai with 8,106 sales. Add those two together, you get 16,684 sales.
Right.
Now, the amazing thing about that is that number one on the list, Toyota, sold 18,820 cars by itself in May. So if you add second and third together, you still can't touch Toyota. Yeah. Their market dominance in this country is absolutely unbelievable.
I think it was M4 Matty Campbell wrote a story where Toyota Hybrid is 12th in the market. You know, just the hybrids that they sell.
That's absolutely right. So, but it does lead me to a fairly obvious question, and that is why. And so let me start by saying this. Until very recently, Toyota's dominance here surprised me a lot, because when I thought about it, when I really broke it down, I couldn't think of one market segment in which I thought Toyota had the best product. Not one. From small cars through to commercials, I thought there was a better product from somewhere else. And yet Toyota, hands down, best-selling car brand every time. Now, that is changing a lot now. Their products have gotten a lot better. There's a new platform that's making things more exciting and more engaging to drive. But they just have this legacy of success here.
I reckon, Chester, you shouldn't underestimate how many car buyers do want that white box on wheels A to B reliability. They want a brand that's trustworthy. They're not necessarily fussed about, dynamic performance and design kind of interest. I was exposed to some qualitative research where the group that I was watching were asked to liken Australia's big banks to car brands. And you had things like Macquarie Bank being Lexus. And you had the Commonwealth Bank was actually a 1970s Kingswood. It was really instructive. But ANZ was Toyota. In that it had a quality offering in every segment. You know, every kind of bank product you wanted, they had one. It may not be the best in the market, but they were there right across the whole thing, and people kind of gravitated towards them because of that. So I think Toyota was an early niche filler. You know, we've now got brands madly filling in little niches. Toyota did that a long time ago. Right. And they've had a very broad offering for decades.
And I think sorry, mate, I think they established that very early on. But perhaps now the other car makers are chipping away at that, and have been in the last 5 or 10 years, because a lot of anecdotal evidence, admittedly anecdotal, to me, suggest that they have major issues with after-sales service.
All right.
As well as reliability, which is,
Yep.
people have always said, oh, Toyota, so reliable, blah, blah, blah. You can drive it everywhere for, 15, 20 years without doing anything to it. But the things that I've heard suggest otherwise. And I mean, increasingly, I have sort of campfire side chats with people, and they...
Yep. Are they real people or just the imaginary
No, it's
people?
just me.
Just you and your friend.
It's me on Tinder. It's me on Tinder. So.
But Crafty, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was down in Tassie just last week, and it's North Queensland and Tasmania. We were joking about how many 70 Series Land Cruisers we saw on the road.
There are a lot.
It's like playing Spotto, but for Land Cruisers, and the points rack up.
Yeah,
there are a lot of them.
Oh, they're everywhere. Absolutely.
You do become too focused on the cities and what have you, but Toyota has that whole breadth of the country.
Oh, they've got the
appeal.
country. Yeah, they've got the country well and
the other factor is, in the office just the other day, we were looking at various automotive brands' advertising media spends and how it breaks down between different channels, online and TV, radio, outdoor, etc. Toyota's is pretty much in line with its sales. It outspends other big brands. I think Holden was second, and Mazda was kind of there, just massively outspends. So their share of voice out there in the commercial market is also enormous.
Is there value just to legacy as well, do you think? So I have a theory in Australia, right, that we have 50 or 60 car brands for sale here. Now, I actually don't think that's true. I think if you really look at it, we've actually got about 12 that people buy in any real number. The rest are all just furfies and outliers, right?
Yeah.
So and that's in the city, right? But the further out of the urban centre you go, the further to the bush, those numbers drop. And eventually you find there's one, maybe one and a half. All Toyotas and then a handful of Nissans.
Pretty
if you
much,
go out far enough, right?
Yep.
And I think part of that, at least, is that think about how many Toyota parts must be spread across Australia. How much service knowledge there is, how many mechanics know how to work on them. No matter where you go, that legacy of success means that there are Toyota parts and skills.
That's
everywhere.
true.
Absolutely,
and the other thing to recognise is that in the 1950s and 60s, Toyota was the icebreaker in terms of export from Japan, and Australia was that kind of test market. And the whole Snowy Mountains hydro scheme played a part there. That Leslie Teese brought in some, I think they were Land Cruisers to work on that project, and all of a sudden Toyota cars were being imported into Australia, and they set up a dealer network. They were way ahead of the game, and they do have that flavour of being kind of a local brand almost, but people have known it for so long, and their dealer network has been established for so long. They've got that momentum.
Absolutely.
Number one has its own momentum, and they've played it very well.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Let me look to the future for just a moment. That's the past. Let's look to the future for a sec. So
I prefer to live in the past. No, okay.
I don't even like the present. So Toyota has had all this unbelievable success, really with product that I think we all agree wasn't all that flash at times compared to some competitors. Now, we are entering an era now, though, where Toyota's cars are really battling for the number one spot in a lot of segments. So the CHR is very good, the Corolla is very good, even the Camry is very good, a sentence I never thought I'd utter.
Yeah, definitely.
And then at the end of this year, they're going to start rolling out Apple CarPlay and Android Auto across their cars, so their technology's finally up to date.
Lots more hybrids.
Lots more hybrids coming on board. Hybrids are really gathering steam in Australia. So if they've had this much success with fairly ordinary product, God, what does the future look like for Toyota?
It'll be interesting.
Where will we be next year?
Well, I mean, their competitors, lower as they are, also have terrific product.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So the whole game steps up, as it inevitably does over time. But you're right. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So that's the market wrap.
Very good. Okay. That's fantastic, Chester. And please, people listening and watching, join in. Love to hear your thoughts on Toyota's dominance and what's created, what you make of it. But we are going to move closer to home. We're going to move to our garage and what has been in it during this week. And Chesto, we're headed down the barrel of some controversy here. You have been driving.
I have been driving the Suzuki Jimny. And now I know more about the Jimny. But bear with me, because I have a slightly different view. Now, I know this ruffles some feathers, I should say, in the CarsGuide.
You can rattle feathers, I suppose. It just doesn't make much noise.
Well, it'll certainly rattle Mal's feathers.
My feathers are certainly rattled. Yeah.
So our fearless leader, Mr. Flynn, is a big fan of the Jimny, as are lots of people in the office.
He takes the bandage from the tattoo off in about 48
that's
hours.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this now. We're talking about the World Car of the Year, Urban Car of the Year, and I spent a week with it not so long ago. I don't get it.
You don't get it?
I don't get it.
Now, is this specifically as, its urban car award would imply? So driving it in the city?
Correct.
Yeah.
I did not venture off-road. It was the manual, which I think is probably the better gearbox for that engine.
Pretty good box, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I don't know. The hype's not there. I don't
it's
get
not
it.
It's not an urban vehicle.
Right.
I mean, that amazes me. Because any time in and around a city or even in suburbia, and you soon realise it's not, and that's not the way they couch the thing. That's not what they're selling it as. They're selling it as a genuine off-roader, and it is pretty good off-road.
Yeah.
So,
The enjoyment I've had is just the novelty.
Yeah.
The design of it, the interior, and that would wear off over time. So there's a lot of hype about, isn't it different? Doesn't it look cute? And look at the interior. So that's it for me. I haven't driven it extensively.
I got to tell you, it wore off by about the first traffic light for me. Not least of which because
150 metres down the road.
But mine was also painted, and I'm going to try and not be offensive here, podcast world, but mine was painted this yellow colour, which can really only be described as sort of a post-Baroque.
Baby poo yellow?
More of a post-Baroque wee kind of
okay.
yellow. You know what I mean? Like just bursting out of the road.
Oh, nice.
Well, that was probably a bad turn of phrase there, actually. Anyway, but for me...
Cut that out.
Does it smell as bad as it
Let's keep going, Chester.
So my point is this, though. That colour scheme in a car that already turns heads, that people already want to look at, to me, I just felt like I was on show the entire time. And I don't mind that in a car where the performance matches that in a way, in an M3 or something, you feel like, okay, well, this is a car that deserves to turn heads. But in this little Jimny, I don't know, I don't get it.
Great, okay.
I think a lot of... Sorry, mate, can I just dive in quickly?
Yeah.
I think the problem with the Jimny, not that it has many problems, because I quite enjoy the thing, but certainly not as an urban driver. The thing is, people have got sort of overwhelmed by their hearts, by sentimentality, recalling the past. And so people have gone a bit over the top, doling out awards to this thing. It probably doesn't deserve as many as it's got, because there are problems with it. But sort of, I think people have got a bit too emotional about it all.
Yeah.
Like I say, it is good off-road.
Yep.
There are problems, like you can't, when you hit sort of 30 Ks in high range, it cuts back. You get traction control cutting in, which is a problem on beaches when you're driving around. So those sort of things. But its size, its dimensions, just the fact that it's a little sort of boxy thing and it's got that sort of old school charm, all that's pretty.
This is two worlds colliding.
Yes.
Crafty, you are the off-highway man,
and
Chester, you're an inner-city creature.
Yep.
So, two different perspectives. And we'd love to hear yours too.
How come Crafty got to be the off-highway man? And I have to be a creature.
You're a creature.
How did that work out?
Oh, maybe the wrong word. Urchin?
You got to say post-Baroque wee, mate. So that's
fine, fair enough.
Too true. Now, I'll just briefly touch on the car that I've driven this week. It was a launch, so it kind of flies in the face of the in-garage thing a little bit, but the Volkswagen Touareg, I think it's really quite important. It's around $90,000 as a launch edition, 5-seater, large SUV, big 3-litre turbo diesel engine, and just full of fruit. And it's on this new MLB Evo platform that Audi has the Q7 on, and there's the Porsche Cayenne, Bentley Bentayga, Lamborghini Urus. All the VW Group SUVs are on this same platform, and it's transformed that car. It is so beautifully comfortable and dynamically really great, and great value for money. The only thing is it has a Volkswagen badge on the front, which, and time will tell how many people go for that, because it is an appreciable saving over something like a big, the Q7 for a starter. There's not much headroom between it and the lower end of the Q7.
Not much difference.
So this again exposes my complete lack of research, which has become something of a trend for me in here. But where does the pricing start for that new?
That's it. It's one model to start with.
Okay.
But before the end of the year, so it's $90,000 before you put it on the road, and there'll be one below it, and there'll be one above it, probably with the same engine before the year's out.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say to Chesto is releasing his autobiography later this month, and it's called Complete Lack of Research.
I
look forward to reading it.
It's a one-pager.
Getting it off my Chester. Anyhow, we will now, speaking of getting it off our Chestos, we will now move to everybody's favourite segment, MuskWatch. Now, what I would like to do is just dive in a little bit to what I consider to be a classic case study in ideas versus reality. And in having a look at this, which is the Hyperloop, so it's an idea that Elon Musk had in about 2013. Not the first person to come up with this idea, but just basically a tube underground with a bullet-like passenger vehicle shooting through it. So the idea is you...
It's an underground train.
We'll
like a Eurostar.
Well, no. It's fast.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So it's super fast. You reduce the pressure in by creating a semi-vacuum in there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very little air resistance. You have a maglev kind of setup and air propulsion. So it runs on these kind of magnetic rails, but nothing touches anything, and whooshka, off you go. So the idea was San Francisco to LA on a loop, 30 minutes or something, you could do that. Big dreams.
Make Chesto's life a whole lot easier because he spends so much time over there. So
the idea was that it would be open sourced, so anyone could come in with their ideas and improve on it as time went by. So you get pods down this tube. Now, they're air-bearing skis and up to 1,220 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not hanging around.
That's
Pretty
fine.
quick.
Now, you'd have immunity to weather, collision-free, twice the speed of a plane, low power consumption, and energy storage for 24-hour operations. So you wouldn't have to worry about weather or any of that kind of stuff.
So reasonable goals then.
That then morphed a few years ago into something, because that just didn't get there.
Yeah. Well, that's no surprise.
But it has fired off this kind of Hyperloop frenzy, and like Virgin is into it. They're doing their own kind of loop thing, but Elon Musk has veered away slightly.
And there's one in Dubai, I think, being built at the moment too, but not attached
really?
to not attached
That's
to
right.
Elon.
So it did fire up some interest, but not in this particular one. The Elon Musk style Hyperloop morphed into kind of electrified skates, where your car, your Tesla, comes down from surface level on a lift and joins up on this skate for frictionless movement and alleged greater flexibility in the system. Okay, so then a 1.8 kilometre hour test tunnel in LA was built by the Boring Company. So Elon Musk's Boring Company dug that tunnel, and they had some demonstrations about 6 months ago of a Model X with some guide wheels, some horizontal guide wheels at the front, going down this tunnel at about 80 kilometres an hour, and it was extraordinarily bumpy, right? So everyone that tried it out just said, it's slow and bumpy, what's going on?
Yep.
Where are these skates and skids and all of this seamless movement? And Elon Musk said, look, all that bumpiness will go, it'll be like glass, don't worry about it. And what's happened in the interim
Don't worry about it.
is that a video appeared where it was a race from two destinations within LA, one above the ground, one below. So this car descends on this really clunky kind of old elevator down to the test
guy
tunnel.
with a sort of hand.
It's a hamster wheel.
Like a dumbwaiter, basically.
It's about 50 hamsters getting it down there.
Yeah.
And it's only a 4-minute journey anyway, but it knocks some time off that. But it goes 200 kilometres an hour underground because it's been paved.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Is that it?
That's it. That's the product.
No magic skates.
Nope, no skates.
No.
So,
No.
on Twitter, a Twitter user, Eddie Kuo, said, why abandon the original idea of sleds? And Elon said, this is simple and just works.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aaron Gordon at Jalopnik, shout out to them, had a fantastic story, and he summarised it this way. Yes, for those keeping score, in a mere 2 years, we've gone from a futuristic vision of electric skates zooming around a variety of vehicles in a network of underground tunnels to, and I cannot stress this enough, a very small paved tunnel that can fit one car.
Yeah. And in which, if I'm reading this right, in which that car is wearing rubber tyres,
Yeah.
which connect to a pavement and drive through the
Well,
tunnel.
a Jalopnik, the first piece of feedback on that Jalopnik story was classic. How long before they decide the pavement is liable to potholing and rutting and invent some sort of extruded steel sections for the vehicle to run on to ensure the vehicles have a smoother, longer-lasting track to travel on?
Yeah.
Seems logical to me.
He's built an
Anyway,
underground monorail.
Look,
It's
there's
unbelievable.
no
it
need to
occasionally,
swear.
apparently. And AM stands for actual machines, right? And
And the
FM stands for effing magic.
Yeah.
So often people need actual machines. What they get are these dreams, which is effing magic. And this is I reckon it's a textbook case.
So easy to sell the dream.
Yeah. Now,
basically.
look, the other one we'll touch on briefly is satellites. So in the world of the dear leader, SpaceX has launched the first 60 of its long-awaited satellite constellation called Starlink. All right. So this is to bring internet to the world.
Okay.
This is the dream. So once you're up there in space, everyone can get access to the web. So this is the first 60. There are currently, I read, somewhere between 200 to 400 satellites orbiting the Earth, all up right now.
Yeah, fair
About 600 k's above our heads. Right now, they're circulating. and it's the same altitude for this Starlink Constitution. What's happened already is that it's kind of photobombing the sky, that there's such brightness from these satellites.
Yeah.
You can see them tracking
Yeah.
in the night sky, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's stuffing up observational astronomy.
Yeah.
So people looking through their telescopes are going, look, there's just all this brightness. It's very
Can't
hard
see any
to
stars.
see what I'm
Absolutely.
looking at.
Yeah.
So Musk would like to turn what will ultimately be 400 that's out there into 12,000.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, good.
Isn't it?
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
So
more
he's
more lights in the sky that aren't stars.
Now,
Yeah.
his vision may be a positive one. He wants to bring the web to the world, but he's wrecking our sky.
Yep.
It belongs to all of us,
Yeah.
and he's just kind of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
What an alarming thought, too, that if we ever are visited by aliens, the very first thing they encounter might be something from Elon Musk. They will have already gone past his flying cars somewhere past the moon.
I know, yeah, that's
Next thing
right,
they hear is
Starman.
this
Yeah.
wall of satellites.
Yeah, with ground control to Major Tom still
Yeah.
just blaring out of
Wait,
this
they'll
little
be ripping
speaker.
a quick U-turn and heading straight back to wherever
But
they
then,
came from.
in terms of Tesla, the share price is currently just above $200, 206. That's up from 185 last
yeah, it
week.
was very low last week.
But June 3rd, it got down to 179. So it has been down there. And smoothed out, the share price has fallen around 40% this year so far.
Yep.
So it is on a downward trend. We've had a little tick up in the last week, but it is very much on a downward
Also,
trend.
the 200 plus is still 40% down from its peak.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Wow, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez.
Because if you remember last year, the call of, I'll take it private
Yeah.
at $420, the share price was just nudging up to 400.
Yeah.
So now we're at 200. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
So look, there it is. That's MuskWatch for yet another week.
Fantastic.
And with that, I think we've reached the finish line. Thank you, Crafty.
No problem.
Thank you, Chester.
Thank you, James.
And thanks to our producer, Rosie, who has done a brilliant job behind the scenes.
Good on you, Rosie.
Thank
You
you,
can
Rosie.
join the conversation by searching for CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram using the hashtag CGPodcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. You can listen to and watch us on YouTube, so jump into the comments with our regulars and be heard. If you're enjoying Tools in the Shed, please let other people know about it. Please rate and review us on iTunes as well. It helps other people find the podcast. Until next week, a mate of mine was at a car showroom on the weekend and said to the salesperson, "But my friend Tomo would like to talk to you about the AU Falcon in the window." To which the salesperson said, "We don't have an AU Falcon in the window." My mate said, "You do now."
Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ball boys. Thank you, linesman.